Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Shabbat. We're up to Perik Tet Mishna Aleph. Today's Mishnah should be Leilu Nishmat Neria ben Svetlana Aranbaev Neriyahu ben Burcha Israelov Menuchatam Meganeden Amen. The last Mishnah in the previous chapter cites a pasuk, a verse that lends support to a law but is not conclusive proof. In the next four Mishnayot, the Tana cites 7 other cases that followed this pattern, though most of the laws do not relate to Shabbat. The first case discusses a rabbinic law that imposes a severe form of tumah upon objects of idol worship. Amar Rabbi Akiva said, Minayin avodah zara shemitamea b'masa kinida. From where do we find support for the rabbinic law that an idol or any object that is worshipped makes a person tameh even when he carries it in a box without actually touching it, just as a nida makes a person tameh when he carries her even without touching her. For example, when he carries her on a stretcher. Now the Mefarshim explain, under biblical law, a person may not benefit from an idol or any other object that was worshipped, such as a building or a tree, and in fact, he is required to destroy it. The rabbis further decreed that a worshipped object becomes a source of tumah, though there is a dispute as to the severity of the tumah that they imposed. According to the Chachamim, according to the sages, the rabbis decreed that a worshipped object transfers tumah only to things that it actually touches, just as a sheretz does. Rabbi Akiva maintains, however, that the rabbis imposed upon worshipped objects a more stringent form of tumah, known as tumat masa, meaning that a person becomes tameh even if he carries the object without actually touching it. So, for example, by carrying it in a box or on a stretcher. This stringency is a mark of the tumah of nida. Now, our Mishnah, which reflects Rabbi Akiva's view, cites a pasuk, a verse supporting the rabbinic decision to impose this strict form of tumah upon worshipped objects. Shneimar, for it is stated regarding the rejection of idol worship that will occur in the times of Mashiach in Sefer Yeshaya, chapter 30, pasuk 22, Tizrem kemo davat tse tomar lo. You will cast them away as you would in Nida. You will say to the idol, go out. Now, this pasuk appears in a prophecy of Yeshaya about the time of Mashiach. The word tizrem, from the word zar, strange, describes a time when people will want to distance themselves from idolatry, which they will recognize as strange and unappealing, and therefore will cast their idols away. Yeshaya then goes on to compare this distance from idolatry to the distance between husband and wife during her nidah period. Ma nidah mitamah b'masa. By comparing an idol to a nidah, the pasuk, the verse indicates a similarity between them. Just as a nidah makes a person tameh through carrying her on a stretcher, even though he has not touched her, af avodah zara mitamah b'masa. So too does an object of idolatrous worship make a person tameh through carrying it in a box, even though he has not touched it. This supports the rabbinic law declaring tumah upon someone who carries an idol. The Rav does point out to us that halakha kechachamim, the halakha follows the opinion of the sages that a worshipped object transfers tumah only to things that it actually touches, just as a sheretz does. That is in Rabotav Mishnah Aleph. We continue now Mishnah Bet. This Mishnah seeks support for another tumah related law. Minayin lisvina she teorah. From where do we find support for the law that a ship remains tahor when it comes into contact with something that is tameh? And the Mefarshim explain, most utensils that are containers become tameh when they come into contact with the source of tumah, like we will see B'ezrat Hashem Bli Neder later on in Mishnayot Kelim, chapter 2, Mishnah 1, with the commentary of the Rambam. Now, although a ship is also a container, there is a halakha leMoshe Sinai, an oral tradition, that ships cannot become tameh even when all the usual conditions for becoming tameh are met. This Mishnah now cites scriptural support for the oral tradition. Shene'emar, it says a pasuk in Proverbs chapter 30, pasuk 19, Derech Oniyah velev yam. 4 things I do not know. The path of one of them is the path of a ship in the heart of the sea once the ship has passed. Now the pasuk lists 4 things that vanish without a trace, including the path of a ship in the heart of a sea, referring to the ripples that a ship makes in the water, which vanishes as soon as the ship has passed. Now the pasuk could have spoken simply of the path of a ship. What is the point of adding the obvious fact that its path is in the sea? Now the Mepharshim say the point must be to teach that ships have something in common with the sea. Now this provides support for the law that a ship, like the sea, cannot become tameh, which Mepharshim explained, the sea being a natural body of water cannot become tameh. Like the Torah says in Sefer Vayikra, chapter 11, pasuk 36. Chapter 11, pasuk 36. So by the same token, a ship or boat, even if it meets all the conditions of size and shape, making a utensil subject to becoming tameh, it can never become tameh, as the Rav brings down based off a Gemara, Sechet Shabbat, page 83b. Now the Mishnah deals with an aspect of the laws of kilayim, the prohibition against planting different species of seed together. It explains how 5 species of seeds may be planted in a small garden patch without violating the kilayim laws. Now the Mepharshim give us a background. The scriptural source of the laws of kilayim, forbidden mixtures, is in Sefer Vayikra, chapter 19, pasuk 19. Sadecha lo tizra kilayim, you shall not plant your seed with kilayim, mixed seeds. Now under this complex set of laws, which includes some biblical prohibitions and some rabbinic enactments, a person is required to plant different types of seed far enough apart that the resulting produce does not appear mingled. Now, generally speaking, this requires that the 2 species be planted far enough away from each other to ensure that they do not draw nourishment from the same ground. Since the rabbis determined that the roots of each seed spread out and draw nourishment from an area of 1.5 tvachim in each direction, the 2 species need to be separated by 3 tvachim. 1.5 tvachim for each species to fulfill this requirement. Now, different species may be planted closer to each other. However, if there is a clear separation, like a fence between them. So the Mishnah continues, I should say, Minayin la'aruga shisha tvachim shezor'in betocha 5 zer'onin. From where do we find support for the fact that a garden patch whose area measures 6 tvachim by 6 tvachim may be planted with 5 different types of seeds? Now, a tefach is the breadth of a hand. Opinions of how large it is in modern times range from 3.2 to 3.8 inches or 8 to 9.6 centimeters. Alba be'alba uchot aruga, when 4 seed types are planted on the outer 4 sides of the patch. So again, minayin la'aruga shisha tvachim shezor'in betocha 5 zer'onin, arba be'alba uchot aruga ve'echad ba'emtza. From where do we find support for the fact that a garden patch whose area measures 6 tvachim by 6 tvachim may be planted with 5 different types of seeds when 4 seeds are planted on the outer 4 sides of the patch and 1 seed of another species is planted in the center, which again, if you could see the diagram brought down in the Arts Elucidated or any other elucidated Mishnah, it'll make it clear. 5 species of seeds can be planted in a patch measuring 6 tvachim by 6 tvachim, Mepharshim explain, by planting 1 seed in the middle of the patch and 1 row of each type of seed along the outer edge of each side of the patch. The middle seed will be separated from the rows of seeds on the outer part of the patch by the required 3 tvachim. Now, although the different species are much less than 3 tvachim apart at the corners of the patch, those species clearly look separate because the rows run in different directions and the corners of the patch remain unplanted. Shenemar, the pasuk says in Sefer Yeshaya, chapter 61, pasuk 11, Ki cha'aretz totzi tzimcha uchgana zeru'ea tatzmiach. For like the earth gives forth its plant, and like a garden causes its seeds to sprout. Zar'ah lo ne'emar ela zeru'eha. The singular expression, its seed, is not stated in the pasuk, in the verse. Rather, the plural expression, its seeds, is used. So this indicates that at least 2 species of seed may be planted in a single garden. And since the verse mentions 3 more words that relate to growth or vegetation, this indicates that a total of 5 different species may be planted in a single garden patch without violating the laws of kilayim. And the Mepharshim explain, each word in the pasuk and the verse denoting growth or vegetation is understood as referring to 1 species of seed. Therefore, totzi, give forth, denotes one type. Tzimcha, its plant, denotes a second type. Zeruah, its seeds, being plural, denotes two more types. And tatzmiach, it will cause a sprout, denotes a fifth type. This supports the law that 5 species may be planted in a single garden patch. Now, the pasuk does not provide support for the Mishnah's statement that a 5-species garden patch may be as small as 6 tvachim by 6 tvachim. That size is based on the rabbi's determination of how far roots spread out from a seed, which has no scriptural basis, has no support from the Torah. Therefore, the pasuk is being cited only to support the known law that 5 different types of seed may be planted in a single garden patch. And this is how the Rav explains it from the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat, page 84b to page 85a. And that is in Abotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen.